Hey, what's up, good people, and welcome yet again to another episode of our TechTrends Podcast. I love this series because we've been talking to a lot of startup founders, a lot of entrepreneurs from across Africa that are part of the MIT Fellowship Program. And in this latest episode, I'm gonna have an interesting guest. I'm gonna just let him introduce himself, tell us what he does, and the question I ask all the other entrepreneurs: what they're building.
Yes. So, thanks for having me.
Yeah.
I am Alim Ladha. I'm the founder of Instill Education. Um, my dream is to transform teaching and learning in every African classroom.
Mhm.
And for me, at the heart of transforming education is how we train and how we support teachers across the continent. So, what I'm building is what I think is Africa's first platform that will take anyone that wants to become a teacher to become a really great teacher, but then be supported through their life until you retire.
All right. Hey, so, which country are you best from?
So we started in South Africa, where we are an accredited university now, a private higher education institution, soon to be accredited in Ghana. But we're already working with teachers today across public schools across Africa. And the biggest country we're in right now are Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, and South Africa.
Ah, okay. Oh, so you're already practicing in Kenya.
We're already in Kenya.
All right. Quick question.
Yes.
Why education?
Look, I love all the other entrepreneurs you interview.
Yeah.
But if we're really going to solve the heart of the challenge, we have to go into the heart of the education system. And we have to support, empower, create a next generation of incredible teachers. Because if we can address some of the challenges that exist in our education system today, it makes all the other ventures more likely to succeed. It makes it more possible for our continent to continue shifting their trajectory positively. On the other hand, if we keep delivering 50% of our students can't do math, they can't read. I mean, we can have all the conversation about AI and climate tech and all that. We're not going to achieve our objectives. And I think this is why this is important to me right now.
Right. And I think for Kenya, for example, right now, we're going through a transition where, like the education system is changing, what they're calling the CBC and all this other, I'm sure you've heard about it in that space.
Absolutely.
What would you say are some of the biggest challenges facing the sector right now? And now, how are you trying to address them?
Okay. So I do think that we have to acknowledge that we've inherited an education system that is built around the needs of a colonial empire, right? You have an empire, based in London, who had to control half the planet, and they designed an education system that required us to look at education like a factory line, right? So you go through grade 1 and grade 2 and grade 3 and grade 4, and you just kind of push people, and then as people fall off, don't do well, you keep trying to push like you would do in a factory line because yield matters, right? And then quality, we'll think about it some other time, right? I think the challenges we're facing right now is that we're stuck in that paradigm, right? We're stuck in that paradigm. And so when we keep coming back to things, we keep asking ourselves, well, let's keep rethinking the curriculum and let's keep thinking the curriculum. And I can count the number of times we've spent millions of dollars with a new curriculum and a new curriculum and a new curriculum. I'm not an expert in curriculum, but what I know about CBC is that it is a solid step forward for Kenya. But it's the same thing that we face every time, which is, okay, you've designed this curriculum. Somebody has to deliver it. Somebody has to assess it on the other side to see if it's working so that you can keep closing the loop. And those chains break down, right? Our teachers today, look, I am optimistic and passionate about our teachers. They get a very bad reputation. We keep telling them they're this, they're that. The reality of it is these are the ones showing up, taking care of our young generation.
Exactly,
They show up, they take their matatus to get to school, they work there all day, they come home, they have to take care of their own children. They take care of their own children and our children.
Right.
And then we complain about them. And I think this is where we fail them. And I think what we are trying to do is to say, let's put the teacher back in his classroom. And let's provide them real support, right? You're in the media industry. You do professional development all the time. It's available to you. You're incentivized to do it. Teachers, we send them to school. We give them theoretical training. And then we say, okay, now sit in front of a class with 50 people and figure it out. It's like, imagine that. Imagine if you had to sit with 50 people interviewing right now. It's a different skill set. Now you have 50 children in the room.
Exactly,
And each children represents the hopes, but also the challenges of their household, and their community.
Right.
And you as a teacher, day in, day out, have to manage all that.
Right. And I think one of the biggest arguments we've had, especially in Kenya, is like the previous curriculum, or just all curriculum we've had, is they're just teaching people how to pass exams, But what happens to giving them the skills to actually, do things?
But you have to give people the skills, but teachers have to have the skills to give the skills.
Exactly, yeah.
Right? And so if we now create this beautiful curriculum, I know there's debate about whether it's good or bad. Let's accept that it's good. Okay? That it's a path forward. Right? What do we do for our teachers? How have we prepared them? And it's not a question of, let's do a 2-week workshop and then you're good. You didn't become a great podcaster with a 2-week workshop.
Yeah.
Right? And you have the responsibility of delivering a very new curriculum that requires new skills, new training, and we've just thrown them. And this is what we focus our energy on, to say, look, professional development is not a workshop with the World Bank or USAID or some foundation's paper. Professional development is something you have to do over and over and over. And we will make it easy for you to do the professional development. So that's what our edtech platform does.
Right.
But there has to be something for you to do it.
Exactly.
Not just because that. So we are trying to build rewards and, some incentive for you to say, look, if you do this, you'll get something out of this beyond just the joy of seeing your kids graduate. But you have to do it over and over and over again. And I think this is where we fail our teachers.
Yeah.
We get this money from the big agencies. Nairobi's full of these big agencies.
Yeah.
They we're going to do a literacy workshop for a month for our teacher. They check their boxes, they catch their money, and then they're gone. That's not how it works.
Okay.
It doesn't work for you.
Exactly, yeah. I mean, and for the edtech platform you're building, which of course I understand has been there for quite a while, right? How many years now?
So we've been building the edtech slowly over the last 5 or 6 years,
Right.
Yeah.
And so this is targeting, is it university, secondary,
No, so we started where we felt the needs was the biggest, which is at the foundational level.
Yeah.
So our professional development platform today has a lot of content supporting primary school teachers, literacy, numeracy, managing that. We also have content that support teachers across their life between, grade 1 until graduation.
Okay.
Right now. We are also training with our accreditation we have in South Africa and Ghana, and we'll work on expanding those accreditations. You can imagine it takes time for government to trust a startup with a license to do this. But the idea is to also train a new generation of teachers, supporting those are already here because we can't ignore them, right? But also create a new model for a great African teacher.
And this is actually content that you actually develop in-house?
Yes. We develop everything in-house. And I think the thing that we learned about content is there's a lot of good content that comes from, again, the usual suspects, the US, the UK. Our content is developed by African academics that understand the challenges of learning English as your second language when you're speaking what you're happening at home. They understand what it means to teach an African language because it's an important part of our culture. It's an important part of our citizenship to speak Kiswahili properly.
Exactly. Yeah.
And Zulu in South Africa and all the 14 languages that we can just count by just naming them, right? And so, but it requires a special skill set to teach African languages. We have an incredible team of African educators. They're actually African women with masters and doctors, but understand our continent, our communities, and how we can embed some of the traditional ways of learning that we've inherited through generations into our modern classrooms. And how do you do it in an environment where you don't have all the resources or there's no electricity and you still need to figure out how to engage? I mean, the feedback we get from from educators that do our content is, I still remember this from a Ghanaian woman who said to me in a workshop is, do you know why I like your content? Is I don't feel stupid.
Yeah.
Right? Because I listen to all this content from the British Council and elsewhere. It's got the British accent and all that. And if I don't understand, then I feel really silly because I'm like, well, do I not understand because I don't speak the language well?
Yeah.
Or do I not understand because I'm not smart? Exactly. Because with you, I hear African voices. I see African faces.
I can relate
to it. And when I don't understand, it means that I just need to go deeper. I don't lose confidence. Right? And he goes, and that gives me so much energy to keep learning because I feel like that you get me. Right? And to me, that was a very powerful moment.
Okay, that's interesting. Let's talk about the MIT program that you're in right now. Talk to us. When did you join the program, and what are some of the key learnings you just picked from the program?
So I joined the program with this class, the class you just interviewed over the last few hours. The fellowship just started. This is our first ecosystem trip.
Okay.
And so the first part of the program was a leadership development. And the question, at least I am asking myself, is what is my purpose? Because I started, building a business is hard. And I started with the purpose of reimagining teaching and learning in every African classroom through Instill Education, right? And I wanted to reconnect with my purpose, because on the day-to-day, you're just kind of grinding and talking to investors and doing this and doing that. You sometimes forget why you're doing this. And so to me, what the program is allowing me to do is, how do I think of my role? Not now, but what I want to do for the next 10 years, right? It is about the business I'm trying to create, which is, I think, is a vehicle for the type of change I want to see, right? But I also want to start thinking about my role as part of a broader ecosystem, right? And as you know, the education ecosystem is at best conservative. And so if you want to start challenging existing paradigms, what role do I want to play? So that's what I hope I get out of this fellowship.
Right, interesting. And of course, you're in Nairobi right now, courtesy of the program. You've went through to so many places, you've seen how the ecosystem works. What are some of your key takeaways from, you've been here for 6 days?
6 days.
Yes, 6 days, yeah.
I've spent a lot of time in my early years in Nairobi. I've gotten to know our tech ecosystem.
Yeah.
I call it our tech ecosystem because I feel part of Nairobi.
So this is basically home.
Huh?
This is
This is
basically
basically
home.
home, right? I think the current ecosystem in Nairobi is at a point of, is at a crossroad.
Yeah.
Right? The story of M-Pesa has to end. We have to stop talking about M-Pesa.
I know.
This is a different. We need a new story.
Yeah.
Right. And I think we're at a place where we're seeing that disruption in the market, where we're seeing a lot of failure in the market, right? Because we've built businesses, and it's a natural cycle of creative destruction. But I think it's time for us to learn something about this destruction, right? I have a few insights, and I think they're controversial. I think maybe they're not. I think the first insight I have is we have to question what we're doing, right? I love my friends in fintech, but building a business to give debt to poor people, to extract as much from them, is not building an ecosystem. It's not lifting this country. It's actually driving people more into debt and more debt. There are great fintech interventions that are driving inclusion. The other ones are, I pause. I think it's a reflection point for our investors, because these investors have applied. There's an investor that says the other day, "My job is not to be patient. I gave you money. I want 32 times my money or 50 times the money in a period of time." And then you ask the well, how long have you had portfolio? How big is your portfolio, and how long is the average time you've been invested? 5 to 7 years. Well, whether you like it or not, you're a patient investor. Right? This is patient capital. So can we start reimagining patient capital here? I think we're at a point of inflection, because we have to start getting more Kenyan investors in the ecosystem, because otherwise it's just colonialism.
Exactly, yeah.
Right?
I think it's one of the things that one of the biggest conversations we feel like, why don't we see a lot of local investors investing in local companies? It's a big conversation that we keep having, actually, that keeps coming up every time I talk to startup founders, or even I talk to investors, like, why don't we have local investors investing in local companies?
I mean, it's if you put yourself in the shoes of an investor, tech is it's a high reward but high risk value proposition, right? You have 18% yield coming from the treasury, so you basically say I could take money and get 18% from the government, guaranteed. Or I invest in you, and you start saying, well, is the yield worth my time?
Yeah,
that's true. Then you start talking about the tax incentives, right? It's not there, right? It's not there. And then I think our investment thesis in Kenya has been built around Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Right? The success is not defined with would you've built a business that is generating revenues or having impact or whatever is the right metric. Success is, can I raise at a higher valuation? And I think that's destructive to us, because ultimately, building a business on the continent, even if it's a tech business, requires a massive amount of investment in human infrastructure. If you're a fintech and you're trying to get people to use your product, it's not just a matter of putting on the app store and advertising. You need agents in the field to bring people in. It's a different game, and so we need to have a different framing around this. So my hope is that we're now at a place where we can all reflect and say, this is how we move forward.
Yeah.
Because we've had successes, but we've had lessons learned. My visit in Nairobi, I'm an optimist, is I feel like there are pockets of people that are starting to think about what next and how do we think about investment in technology and innovation-driven enterprises differently. Is there enough of them? No.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing that, Kenya has this kind of startup bill that it's supposed to be signing into law.
Yeah.
The president promised to sign it into law, I think, in March, April.
Yeah.
Nothing has happened until now.
Yeah.
So I think, and actually that bill addresses some of the things you raised about, tax incentives and all those things.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping maybe, something may change in the coming years, but there's still a lot of lessons to be picked up.
There is. And we can't discount the role that all this foreign money has here, right? We can't discount that, right? For all of my colleagues who are building education businesses, we end up building a lot of these businesses on grants because you're competing with free all the time, right? If you're a teacher and you can get it for free, why would you pay for it, right? However small it is, right? If you are continuously reliant on foreign funding, you can be the fintech raising in US dollars, but you're still earning in shillings. Yep. And as the currencies do go like this, you can build a fantastic business. You still have to service debt in US dollar, which is, by the way, the structural problem of all African countries. All our debt, 70% of our, I heard this the other day from somebody, 70% of the money that we raise as part of the tax in the country goes to servicing debt.
Yeah.
Everything else is optimizing on the edges. We're not talking about the real problem. And I think it's going to take leadership, acts of leadership, for people to say it's time to have a different conversation about foreign aid in Kenya, investments in, and I think it's true for all the African countries.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thanks, man.
And thank you so much for just joining us on this, episode of our TechTrends Podcast. So, of course, we look forward to what we're seeing, what you're building and learning more, and of course, to see a lot of African governments just create enough regulation to actually just incentivize a lot of startups that are building great products like what you're building, in the edtech space, because education, there are things you can't run away, for example. Education is only one of them, right? And, of course, we look forward to basically seeing what you're building and talking more and having this conversation. So thank you so much for joining us.
I'll leave you with one thought.
Yes.
I think it's time for us to not play somebody else's game. That's what we're doing. We're playing Silicon Valley's game. We're putting firms. Let's define our game, our rules, and then build something that can make an impact on all communities.
All right.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks.
And thank you so much for watching this episode. I'll see you in the next one.